Well, welcome back to another video, and I'm excited because today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Love Through a Prism. I just watched it last week, and it was so good. It's easily made its way into being one of my favorite romance animes, and I made a brief video on TikTok about it, but I just feel like I need to talk about it more because there is so much in that show that was just so well crafted and so well executed and stuff that a 3-minute video isn't really enough to talk about the entire thing. So I feel like I just needed to make a longer video just to talk about it, to really give it its flowers, no pun intended. And just I recommend it to anyone who wants to watch it. Which, by the way, again, there will be spoilers in this video. So if you haven't seen the anime yet, and you're scared of spoilers, maybe don't watch this entire thing. Maybe just watch the summary that's gonna come up right after this, and make a decision if you want to watch it after that. And if you don't care about spoilers, stick around because I'm gonna gush about all the great stuff that occurred in the anime. And yeah, then you can go check it out for yourself because honestly, even with spoilers, I feel like it still is 100% worth watching. It's a great story. But without further ado, let's get into the rest of the video. Love Through a Prism is set in pre-World War I London and follows our main character, Lili as she makes her way from Japan to London to study art. And this girl is bent on, obsessed with being number one because her mom was like, nobody remembers second place. If you want to actually study art and be at that school, what you need to do is be number one within 6 months, or else you're coming back home and you're working on a kimono boutique, and that's going to be the end of the story. And so Lily gets there, very confused, doesn't speak the language very well, doesn't know anyone, doesn't even know where the school is, and is pointed in the direction of the school by someone who's drawing art by the river, and who also offers to feed her charcoal covered bread, and is quite frankly very rude. And as it turns out, this guy named Kit Church is actually a student at the art school, and not only a student, he is the number one student in the drawing department, or the painting department, where Lily is enrolled. So he is effectively her competition, and the fact that she finds him very rude, and abrasive, and just not good at picking up on social cues. So she wants to beat him because of that, but she also wants to beat him because she wants to be number one. And this sparks this really interesting rivalry, friendship dynamic between the two of them, where it's they both have things to teach each other, but they're both also pushing each other forward. But there's also the whole thing of Lily wanting to be number one, committing herself to beating Kit at painting, basically, just by him being an artistic genius. And it's a really interesting way that the story plays out, because that rivalry turns to friendship, it then turns to romantic tension. But Kit is actually aristocracy, British aristocracy. So he has responsibilities outside of art that his brother especially is kind of hey, you need to stop playing around with the art stuff now. You need to come in and be an aristocrat, because our father is literally sick. So you can't just keep doing this forever. And yeah, it was a very interesting story watching all that play out. It was so interesting seeing that conflict, those things trying to pull the two of them apart, while they simultaneously learn more about each other and further each other's art journeys and discover their feelings for each other, and also just how to be the truest version of themselves. And it was really a great story that is told really well in 20 episodes. I honestly for something that's only 20 episodes, it really pulls you in, and it really makes you feel the story just progresses in such a natural way. So that's the summary. But yeah, it's very good. Follows them through several years basically throughout their story. So it's very interesting. So obviously we have to talk about the art style, because this is an art-based romance anime, and it's literally a part of the story and of the dynamic between the characters. But as an overall aside, I think that the general animation style, the general way the characters are drawn, their designs and everything, is really well done. It's really well crafted. As I mentioned, this is pre World War I London that we're set in for most of the stories, so it's it's really nice seeing all that aesthetic come to life on screen. I feel we get a lot of modern stuff, and we get a lot of stuff that's medieval aged, or medieval era, but we don't get too many things that are in that middle industrial period, the pre World War I London. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed seeing that. I like seeing the contrast between the city and the countryside and these rich manors and whatnot. So that was really nice to see. But getting into the actual art pieces that the characters draw, I think it's really interesting that you have Kit's art pieces, which are pretty much always meant to evoke awe from both the viewer and the other characters, in a sense, where they'll look at it and be wow, he how did he think to use purple for this, or how did he think to use a puddle on the ground when we were told to paint the sky in its truest form. And his paintings always kind of do that, really. And they always kind of like are meant to, they're drawn, or like anime, they're drawn in the anime in a way that like sets them apart from everyone else's, and like they have kind of a shine to them. They're really given time to be like a spectacle, for example. And like similarly, we have Shin, who's another character from Japan actually, who is in the sculpture department, who kind of figures out how to like fuse the Japanese style with his own touches, as well as like with like European styles as well. And his stuff is also kind of given its own shine a lot of the time, where it's like, wow, this is like, how did Shin kind of like come up with this, or like how did he get to this point? Like, this is actually a really cool thing. But the standout here are really Kit and Lili, just because um, Lili's drawings are, for one, the art teacher is more or less like, your drawings are good, but they're like something that like a professor or a teacher would draw, like if they're teaching someone else how to draw. Like, this is objectively good, but there's no like, you don't have like not that she doesn't have personality in there, but like there's no like, this doesn't push the envelope forward. Like, this is just like what you would expect of good art. It's not like a step above or a step forward like Keith's like Kid's stuff is. Why do I keep calling him Keith? I don't know. But essentially the whole really first part of this is kind of Lily kind of like learning from Kit, learning to see the world from a different perspective, a different angle. um, and it's, some things happen in the character plot between like some of the characters, and at one point during like their very last critique, which happens closer to, I think, the middle of the show. Louis is basically drawing, but then she realizes that Kit's actually not present because Kit um, got sick from the previous events that happened and wasn't able to attend. And she was like, I honestly don't even think I'm going to win at this point. I don't care about being number one. I just care. I want Kit to be here. Like, he's my friend. I want him to be here. It just feels wrong for him not to draw for a critique. So she goes to take care of him, and while she's there, she draws very detailed drawings while he is kind of like asleep, or like recovering from his illness in bed, basically, and like does this on multiple pages, like to account for the way he shifts, the way he moves, the way the covers move. And so she draws this and ends up leaving the sketchbook at Kit's place when she leaves, because she's like, at that point she's like, I'm going back to Japan. Like, it's over. I tried my best, but like, you really taught me that like it's not really about being number one. I like kind of like discovered myself again, and that was really nice. And so she leaves, and then Kit realizes that her sketchbook is there. And then what Kit does is he opens the sketchbook, sees the first drawing, sees the second drawing, then flips through them a little faster, and then realizes that the drawings are basically a flip book, but highly detailed, almost literally like an anime, actually. And he then submits that to the critique on her behalf. And although it's late, he then stands up to the teacher and is like, "Are we not here to like push art forward and like inspire others? Like, this is what you've been teaching us. This is the essence of what you've been teaching us this whole time." And so Lily gets her number one spot, and that was really great, for one. But then she then makes another painting that is like almost, so depending on the angle that the light hits the painting, due to like the ridges of the painting from the paint she used, it will either appear as like a blank white canvas, or it will appear as like lilies, like flowers and stuff, which is really cool. And just one of those things where it's like, everyone's like, how did you think of that? Like, that's a crazy thought. But at the same time, everyone is also captivated by Kit's drawing, because at this point, Kit's drawing is, Kit had told her, hey, I'm not going to be at school for a while, leading up to like this royal showcase, and there's an idea I want to paint. And so he goes and he paints this idea, and the idea, like, he had a motif, something he wanted to paint for, and he paints a woman holding a bouquet on a beach, I believe, just looking off into the distance, a bouquet of lilies, a bouquet of flowers. And the profile of the woman in the picture is very clearly Lily, because at this point, Kit is in love with her. He knows he's in love with her. He knows he loves her. And yeah, I don't know. It's just a really great way that like the art really just captivates the feelings of the characters, and also how they progressed and like moved forward. Like, it's really great, especially when you look at the final piece that Kit draws in like the post-credit scene of the show. But it's just really great. Like, I loved the feeling that I got from seeing each painting and seeing what the characters kind of like put into each painting. And so yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, it really does strike a chord with me. I enjoy that aspect of it. But there are so many more paintings in this show that are worth talking about. But those are two that really stand out to me, and I think two that really kind of like showcase what their dynamic was throughout the show. So I just wanted to bring those up. Another thing that I also want to touch on really quick, that's almost adjacent to the art style, is the use of color to convey emotions, especially in the back like 3 episodes of the show. Because as I mentioned, pre-World War One London, but obviously being in pre-World War One London, that means World War One's gonna break out, and it does. And at the time, Kit and Lily are actually kind of like getting along and being on better terms. But then what happens is, you know, World War One kicks off, and Kit then decides, you know, I have to go pursue my aristocratic duties because my father has died. Like I can't leave my brother to do this by himself. So I can't pursue art anymore. And him and Lily end up having multiple conversations between the time where he leaves to go on a diplomatic mission and Lily's sent back to Japan, and when he resolves himself to like pursue aristocratic duties. And in each of those conversations, both of them somehow manage to say something like that they don't mean, or something harmful to each other, or are just not fully capable of expressing the way they feel. And this results in, you know, the final like part of this with Kit on a boat sailing off and Lily on a dock, just very sad, you know, mumbling like under her breath basically that she does in fact love Kit. And so then the next 2 episodes are all in black and white as a representative of like Lily's depressive state that she entered, because like for one, she goes back to Japan and really can't pursue art in the way that she wants to. Her friends are all like in a world torn with war basically. And then she then gets a letter from, you know, Catherine, who Kit's former fiance, who didn't like Lily to begin with, but actually then ended up liking Lily a lot and was able to break off the engagement with Kit to pursue her own dreams. Ends up writing a letter to Lily to tell her that like, you know, Kit's boat that he was on got lost at sea, and then he's listed as like, you know, deceased essentially. And that breaks her because, you know, she loved that man a lot. And you know, she gives up painting. She doesn't, you know, do anything. She doesn't really do anything that she likes. She just commits herself to working at the kimono boutique. Shin, who, you know, promised to take care of her in Kit's stead because he also had to go, you know, go back to Japan, ends up proposing to her, and you know, they're slated to get married. But that doesn't matter because despite the fact that like Kit and Lily get along very well, there are two characters that like that Kit had, not Kit and Lily, that Shin and Lily get along really well. There are two characters that Kit had a great influence on. Like Kit was able to kind of like look at Shin's sculpture and be like, hey, you know, like there are really cool sculptures in Italy that like you should see that like might inspire you, and like they did inspire him, and he has always wanted to go to Italy since then. And Lily again pushed her to like not really care about rankings, to just care about the art, to care about, you know, be true to herself basically in her painting. So he's a key character to both of them, and so those episodes, 18 and 19, are fully in black and white to represent for primarily Lily's depressive state, but also I assume Shin's, because like Shin does have his own solo segments and they're also in black and white, and I think that definitely represents them being trapped in a space where they can't, because neither of them are pursuing their art at this point. Like they're both just kind of like, we're gonna live a quiet life, we're gonna get married, and we're not gonna do art anymore. We're just gonna like live our regular lives in Japan. So like there's no color. The world has lost color for both of them. Like it's gone. However, it does come as a surprise when they find a painting that they both recognize. They're like, there's no way that this can be Kit's, but like it is in Kit's style. They see it in Japan. Earlier in the day, Shin thought he saw Kit walking around off a boat like that was bound for England. He's like, maybe he's still alive. So they go look for him, and you know, Lily is about to give up. She's like, you know, I can't believe like I thought he was alive. It's been 5 years. Like there's no way. And then homegirl falls on her face, and sure enough, there to pick her up is Kit, because he actually survived, you know, the jungles, various different places, and made it onto a boat that made it to Japan and was on its way back to England, basically. And the really interesting part about when he finds her is a firework goes off because there's a firework festival happening, and the firework illuminates his face slightly, and you can see a slight hint of color in his eyes and his hair, because she's seeing this man for the first time. And then like after seeing him, after he leaves, you know, she resolves herself to paint again. And so that's when the color comes back almost. And when the color fully comes back, she completes her painting. She's like, wow, this is terrible, but like it's who I am right now. And I really like kind of like that moment of like the color coming back, of returning to who you are, and maybe not being the fullest best version of that, but like now you're you again. And like that was a great way of using color, and I really enjoy when an anime can do that and like use color to its advantage in that way, because that was just a really well done way of doing it. um but yeah, that was another really great part that I enjoyed. Like I was not expecting that in the back part. I was like, oh, she's like depressed because like there is no color at all. Like it's black and white. But yeah, it's really great. So that's another great thing about the show. Okay, so really quick, I want to talk about some like character dynamics outside of Kit and Lily, just because I think that a really core part of this anime is that uh, people having passions and things that they like, but also finding a way to be true to themselves and who they are and like their other aspects of themselves. Like for example, there's a character named Peter, and Peter does love art. He's very into art, but the thing is that he's very, self-conscious about the fact that he doesn't compare to Kit, he doesn't compare to Lily, he doesn't compare to like people in the class that he considers to be great and to, like, to be worthy of being put on a pedestal in the critiques and like otherwise. And so the thing about this is that it really frustrates him, and he ends up actually like leaving and pursuing like economics at a school, like a royal school basically. And through that, he's actually able to, because that's something that he actually has a knack for. Like he has a knack for um, economics and like the math of things. And so what he does is he kind of like figures out a way uh, to work that into his passion for art in a way that he's like, oh, you know what? I can actually like, figure out a way to like get money, use money to like, uh, buy art, showcase my friends' art, that sort of thing, and like really platform the great artists or like the people that I think are great. Uh, in a way that like I wouldn't have been able to if I just continued to pursue art. So he's still able to find his slice of happiness and work his like passion into it. And you have Dorothy, who is Lily's best friend, who very much okay at art, but like she's okay with that. She's like, that's fine. Like I'm not like you or Kit or whatever. Then that's okay. But she also has a crush on Joffrey, who's one of the more aristocratic people at school. But she's like, I have a crush on him. He has a crush on me. But like low key, I'm okay with like just living like a quiet life in the countryside in my town that I grew up in, because in my eyes, there's no place more beautiful than this. I could paint this town for the rest of my life. I want to have kids like my mom, that sort of thing. And she does that, and she finds her own happiness. She is not always looking for the next thing. She just wants to like paint and be content, maybe be a teacher. But she's just content with like a regular kind of like home style life. And then the same thing with Joffrey, in the sense that Joffrey decides he doesn't want to pursue art, but he still again wants to work art into what he does, because he wants to have a pub. He wants to own a pub. He wants to like hang his friends' paintings and sculptures all around the pub, basically showcase them. And he does that. He gets the pub. He does that. And you got Shin, who wants to travel around looking at different sculptures to inspire his own sculpting and kind of like break away from like the traditional Japanese sculpting and develop his own thing. And he does that. So all these people stay true to themselves, stay true to their art, but they figure out ways to work it into things that they have a knack for, things that they truly desire. And I think that's a really important part of this, is like desire and like what you want out of life is important. Like regardless of whatever barriers in your way, whatever obstacles life throws at you, you have to go for what you want. You have to like go get what you want. And they all did that in their own roundabout ways. Even Kid and Lily do this. And I just really think it was a great part of the story, a great addition, because it's just like that's how life is. Like it's not always smooth sailing. Like sometimes you like something, but you're not the best at it. You're not great at it. Maybe you keep trying, maybe you get better, maybe you don't, and maybe you figure out a different way to engage with that thing that isn't necessarily like participating or creating said thing. So I really like that aspect as well. I think that was like a great part of the character dynamics. And also their friend group is just really wholesome. Like they all really support each other like really well. Granted, they did have some fights in there, obviously, because it can't be all fluff, right? All the time for every series. But they support each other, and they have each other's backs, and they support that like each other's dreams and what they want out of life. And that was something that was really nice to see as well, because like I think that's a really great way to showcase a friend group on screen for any sort of like horror anime, basically. Okay, so now it's time to talk about Kit and Lily, the stars of the show. Essentially, I love these two. I really do. They're so great in the sense that I really like how Kit brings the best out of Lily and shows her that it's not all about being number one all the time. Like sometimes it really is just like, what do you want to do? Like what are you passionate about? Because the dream of being number one, the dream of being the best, it's kind of Lily's, but it's also not really hers. Like it was a stipulation that she had. What she really cares about is the art and getting her artistry out of there. And so uh, you know, through traveling around with Kit, through getting to know him, she really kind of discovers these things about herself, discovers how to push the envelope, discovers how to pour herself into her art. And it's when she like truly gives up on that whole like being number one, being the best type thing, that her art hits the next level, that it like hits its peak. And I think that was a really great kind of like addition, because it's like once she like shed that, it was almost like her weights were shed, and she just like becomes the artist she was meant to be prior to like World War I starting and her having to go back home. And that's really nice. And then also like on the flip side, Lili gives Kit uh, the gift of love, basically. I mean, because Kit loves to draw things that he loves, that he wants to see, that he wants to sear into his mind. But he's never really like loved another person romantically. Because like I mean, he's engaged to Catherine, but he doesn't love Catherine. Is the thing. Like he cares about Catherine, but he's not like in love with her. So he's never like drawn a painting of her or anything. But like he's captivated by how Lili looks, how she acts. He like her personality, everything about her. And so he is pushed to his peak when he's drawing her, basically. Like there is the painting that gets hung up at the Royal Showcase, where it's like his, at least what he believed anyway at the time, to be his last piece of a woman resembling Lili standing on a beach, and it's just a beautiful painting. Everyone's like, oh my god, this is like the greatest thing ever. And then similarly, the painting that Lili and Shin find in Japan, that clues them into the fact that he might still be alive, is most certainly a drawing of Lili. It's a woman wearing a lily dress with lily flowers around. So it's like, that's Lili. So he's locked in on her. And I think like through that, like, their Professor Brent is always kind of was telling Kit, like, in the same way that he was telling Lili, like, hey, you're like drawing like an art teacher, you need to like not be afraid to explore, not be afraid to like fail, and like really lean into the art aspect of it. For Kit, it wasn't that he was like bad at the art aspect of it, is that he was drawing from a place of fear a lot of the time. And I think Lili helped him get rid of that fear and helped him kind of like see the world in a different light, which is kind of basically what he says in his confession. He's like, hey, you're like a prism, like you reflect the colors of the world in hues that like I normally wouldn't be able to see. Which, by the way, banger. That's like that is amazing. The whole confession is fire. It's one of the best confessions I've ever seen, actually. I think, like, I'm not, and it might be recency bias, I don't know, but I'm gonna claim that right now. It's a really good confession. But yeah, it's just, he basically he gives her, again, color to her world, shows her what it's like to like really love art, really love the world. And in the same vein, uh she gave him courage, because like, after World War I, after he makes it back to England, after he like finds out, after he just is able to live his life again, he decides to go traveling and like drawing all these different landscapes and whatnot. Granted, again, he says that like the landscapes are anything without Lili in them, which is again another crazy bar. um but he then gets that adventurous wanderlust eye that like Professor Brandt said that his father had, which is really just, it's just a full circle moment. It's really great. And similarly, Lili, once Kit comes back, decides, I'm actually going to follow him. I'm gonna go after him. Like after her and Shin agree to mutually break off their engagement to pursue their own arts, she's like, I'm gonna go back to London, but I'm also going to I'm not gonna forget about the kimono boutique, because I'm gonna make us like worldwide. Like I'm gonna make us like renowned. And so she goes to basically work with Catherine, because also Catherine's another character I forgot to mention, who is also able to pursue her dreams, because she loved dresses, and that was something that she wouldn't have been able to do if she like went through with marriage and like did all the aristocratic stuff. So Catherine is able to fulfill her dream and has like a renowned dress shop, and basically she gives Lili a spot in the dress shop to create kimonos, which is really nice, or like to showcase the designs of the Ichijo and kimono boutique. And yeah, through that, Lili is able to make her family's name, make their kimonos like almost a worldwide renowned kind of thing. And still have the thing of like being the best almost. Like she's still able to have it all. That's the interesting thing, is that once she really gave up on being obsessed with it, and just kind of incorporated it into her dream, because like her dream is still to pursue art, of which she's like, I don't need to be the best. I just want to draw. I just want to paint. I just want to like hone my craft. And once the other things came along with that, she was actually better at that than if she was just focused on being number one, which I think is really great. And then obviously, again, they just color each other's worlds. They bring the light to each other's eyes, and they are a couple, and it's really great. And again, the confession itself is phenomenal. It's really great. I love the kiss, and I love the fact that there is a whole thing in this anime about lilies in a cave where, you know, they go searching for it in London or like in England. They don't find it. They just find a field of lilies, and they draw that, and you know that's where they first have their kind of like moment where it's like, is this more than like us being rivals or friends? I don't know. And there's another moment where, like, you know, before Keith leaves, Lily's bringing it up, and Keith is like, yeah, you know, like that's not a real thing. Like we can't go looking for that, and that really hurts Lily because she's like, you know, like that was our thing. Like, you know, Lily's in a cave, that was us. And then when Keith is missing, he never forgot that. He never forgets the Lilies in the cave, and he actually finds them on his travels while he's missing. And he's like, and then he promises, you know, I promise I'll take you there. Don't forget the blue paint, because like at one point Lily had her blue paint stolen very early in the show, and Keith lent her some ultramarine paint instead. And then Lily's like, I remember the paint. And she's like, and you know, so you're gonna take me there, right? And the last scene of the show is them in the cave of lilies, with the lilies, and you know, Keith is drawing Lily sitting amongst the flowers. Lily is drawing the flowers, and it's just a great ending. It's just a really great way to end the show. But yeah, I think their dynamic is it's really well executed, and I really enjoyed seeing them grow closer to each other and grow in their art styles. And I think that's a way that, like, I don't know, it's one of those narratives that just it really locks you in, like it really grabs you, and then like you're along for the ride. Like I think I watched the last like 9 episodes of this in one day because I just their dynamic kept getting better, more interesting, and then like the conflict was really well executed. And you know, by the end of it, they're able to say what they mean and able to confess to each other and come together, despite the fact that the world was trying to tear them apart. So I really enjoyed that. All right, that brings us to the end of the video. There was definitely a lot of rambling in this one, just because like there's so much to talk about, and honestly, like there are probably like this video could probably go on for an hour if I wanted to talk about every single aspect of this show. But it's so good. It's amazing. Honestly, you should check it out if you haven't already. If it sounds interesting to you, if you like art at all, if you like painting, drawing, whatever have you, I think you'll get a lot of, you know, use out of this, a lot of like enjoyment out of this. And if not, if you just like a good romance, if you like things that are set in like the early 20th century, this is the one for you, because again, it feels really grounded. It feels like the world feels really lived in, and it feels accurate to the time period. So yeah, I definitely recommend watching it. I watched it in dub, by the way, and I think the dub is very good, because they got actually like British voice actors for this. So yeah, but that is the end of this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.